What's up, everybody? This is Help Talk 123 here. Hope you guys are having a great morning. The question the last few days has been, where will Hanley Ramirez end up? Now, if you asked that a few weeks ago, people would look at you like you're a little crazy because the Marlins a few weeks ago were not doing too bad. They had just acquired Carlos Lee a little shortly after that, and they wanted to team him up with Stanton, getting that production at first base, mixing with the power they have, mixing with Hanley Ramirez and Jose Reyes and Omar Infante. I mean, this is a very good offense if everyone is healthy and everyone is producing to the highest level. This is a playoff caliber offense. And it just hasn't worked out. Logan Morrison hasn't worked out. Chris Coghlan hasn't worked out. Jose Reyes has not worked out. Hanley Ramirez has shown improvement in home run wise, but his average still not very well. His strikeouts are up and his walks are down. I mean, you are looking at disappointments all over the field. One of the biggest ones was Gabby Sanchez. And even Heath Bell, a huge disappointment there. So the Marlins have just had disappointment after disappointment, and they got to a point where they have to consider selling. And in the past few days, they've cleared off so much salary with the Anibal Sanchez trade and the Omar Infante deal. Now, those deals compared to this, very small, because, those deals were featuring guys that were going to be a free agent or guys that had 1 year left on the contract. And got top prospects for. They got Jacob Turner. They got a great catching prospect and another solid pitching prospect there. So you look at this deal, you see, Hanley Ramirez, former All-Star multiple times, 2009 batting champ, and runner-up to MVP. And you see lefty Randy Choate, and I'm pretty sure I pronounced the name wrong. He's a definition of a loogie. I mean, he has had fantastic numbers against lefties. He is averaging to appear in 66 games and 31 innings. It shows you he just goes in for an out or two at most. So it's a great pickup for the Dodgers. It really does help this relief. So you're looking at this deal, a two-player deal, and one of them obviously is Hanley Ramirez. And you would expect a 5 or 6 player deal in this. I mean, you expect a lot of top prospects involved. The situation is very different with Hanley Ramirez. So a few years ago, yes, you'd be looking at the asking price of at least the Dodgers. You'd be looking at Garrett Gold. You'd be looking at Zach Lee. You'd be looking at Chris Reed. Looking at some secondary prospects, but the Marlins would still have to cover up maybe some of the salary, even if he was at his prime. But he's not, and his numbers have declined steadily the past 2 years. His strikeouts are up, his walks are down, and his power is up, which is better this year. Last year he had 10 home runs. This year already has 14 steals. He's not bad on power, but it's the average. I mean, his average is about what it was last year, which is not the Hanley Ramirez type that you want to see. But I think this trade could really help him. I think he seems extremely happy going to the Dodgers. He gets to play shortstop until Dee Gordon is back. I mean, he really does seem legitimately happy going to L.A., going to a winning team, going to a team in the playoff hunt. And the Dodgers were just a few moves away, I think, from making the playoffs. And I think they probably will make the playoffs now. I don't want to make any predictions because anything can happen. I mean, the Marlins got a bunch of these guys, and you think, hey, this could be a playoff team. It could be really exciting. It could be really fun to watch. Hanley Ramirez and Jose Reyes teaming up together and all this stuff. And they don't. They failed miserably. So you don't know what's going to happen. The Dodgers have done great under situations where they weren't expected to win. This year, guys like, Kenley Jebsen and Guerrero and all these guys stepping up in the bullpen. And then on the field, guys like Jerry Harrison, it seems like anywhere he goes, he just hits. He's hitting around 300. I mean, guys have stepped up. This Dodgers team has found ways to win. Even when Matt Kemp was hurt for a while, they found ways to win. At one point, they had the best record in baseball. I mean, you're looking at a team that doesn't quit. And Don Mattingly, I give a lot of credit for him. He's done a fantastic job this year. So, I mean, you're looking at a team that, when was unexpected to win, has done fantastic. And at one point, again, had the best record in baseball. So, adding a left-handed reliever and then Hanley Ramirez is obviously going to help them. The shortstop and third base problem, the left side of the infield, has been a problem for them. With other teams involved in the trade talk, it's also been a problem for the Oakland A's. It's also been a problem for the Baltimore Orioles. It hasn't been a huge problem for the Red Sox because they traded away Kevin Youkilis, knowing that Wilson Middlebrooks there, and he's done a great job this year. Mike Aviles has done a pretty good job. I would say he's been really good, actually, at shortstop. So they felt that they could trade Marco Scudero earlier this year, too. So then we find out later that the Red Sox were probably just going to flip him to another team because I always thought it was kind of weird that the Red Sox were involved since they've had payroll problems, the luxury tax they don't want to worry about. Why are you going to try to cover up for most of the time for Hanley Ramirez in a high-pressure situation in Boston, a big media market? I don't think it'd be good for Hanley Ramirez going to Boston. I do think this deal is perfect for him. I would have loved to see him go to the A's. I think it would have been great. But I think if you're just talking for Hanley Ramirez, I think this is the best thing that he can do. He's around a great group of guys. They're pretty loose. They are having fun. They're doing extremely well. And I think it's really exciting for him to go out to L.A. and HanleyWood is officially starting. Let's see if the Dodgers, which pretty much became a salary dump for the Marlins as the Dodgers gave up Nathan Eovaldi, who was in the top 100 prospects for MLB this year. He kind of is a mid starter, probably 3 or 4, projects as a 3 or 4 type starter. He hasn't had much success in his career starts in the MLB, but I think this guy will be a solid 4 starter, 5 starter for the Marlins, no doubt about it. His fastball, mid-90s, not bad. Doesn't have much secondary stuff, and that's where the issues come about. I mean, his strikeout rate is not good, and that's kind of because he doesn't have the secondary stuff. But he does have a nice fastball, and he does project as a 4th or 5th starter. So not a bad move for the Marlins, and they can kind of slide him into the rotation. They do need pitchers, especially after trading guys like Anibal Sanchez and could be trading Josh Johnson. Also getting another prospect in this deal, Scott McGough, who projects as a pretty good reliever, mid-90s. Now, McGough has that fastball-slider combination, that good fastball-slider combination that you do see a lot in relievers, and he's got mid-90s stuff. Again, he strikes out a lot, walks a little too much, but hopefully that can develop. He was drafted actually in 2011 in the 5th round, so not a bad complimentary prospect there. And the Marlins, really, they're just building up their farm system and hoping some of these guys can produce at a major league level in a few years. This Marlins team will be good at some point, but I think they have to realize that they're not going to be good with this team, and they're not going to beat the Washington Nationals at this point, maybe not even the New York Mets. I mean, all of the teams in the East are pretty competitive. This year especially, except for the Phillies so far, but I think the Phillies are going to figure it out, and they're going to get on a run. I don't really necessarily think they'll win the East, though. I think the Nationals, this is their year, and I'm a pretty big fan of the Nationals in a sense. I'm still a Cardinals fan, but, the Nationals, they're a pretty cool team. So, the Marlins, I think, going into this year, I did want them to do well. I thought it was a great thing that they, went to Miami, a lot of buzz on them. I didn't know if just signing a bunch of free agents and trading for Carlos Zambrano and going and get Ozzie Guillen was necessarily the smartest thing to do. It did get a lot of media, but I don't think it really was the best thing to do for a baseball team. And now we can kind of evaluate that. It was a complete experiment. Going into this year, I was just like, okay, Hanley Ramirez, Jose Reyes, Ozzie Guillen, Carlos Zambrano, and Logan Morrison all on the same team. Okay, this is going to be interesting. Oh, yeah, and Heath Bell, too. I mean, it was a very interesting combination, and again, it was kind of an experiment, and it hasn't worked out, and they have complete fire sale. The question is, will they trade Josh Johnson next? The Rangers could be definitely a possibility there. They also are going for Zach Greinke. So we'll see if they can get a top prospect for Josh Johnson. If they could get Mike Olt, would be fantastic for them, get them a real third baseman there. So, a good trade for the Marlins, getting a bunch of salary off the books, and a good trade for the Dodgers. Hopefully they can make it into the playoffs. This could give them the boost they want. This is Jack McNeil, MLB Talk 123. Thanks for watching, and hope you enjoyed.